Okay, hello. It's Cole again. Alright, new development since the last time I did this. I noticed that now I have some subscribers, which is great. Awesome to have you. Welcome aboard. This may be possibly entirely, due to my pal Raiho passing along some of you to me, asking you to take a chance on me. So I really appreciate that if that's the case, but if you found me all on your own, that's great too. So realizing this, maybe some of you aren't really big into comics, but stick with me, I'll get you there. So thanks again, welcome. Welcome to yet another thing that takes time out of your day. Okay, so moving on. Last time I was just mentioning the comics that I'm following, the main ones, my main three, and they are Moon Knight, Iron Fist, and New Avengers. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about one of them, Iron Fist. So we'll start there. Before I get into the actual series, Immortal Iron Fist, a little history on the character. Iron Fist, Danny Rand, that was his real civilian name, was introduced as sort of part of a wave of kind of some, I don't want to say, exploitation type characters. Characters that are introduced to take advantage of a certain, whatever was sort of popular at the time. And in the 70s, there were, various trends and fads and things like that. And one of them was, because of the Bruce Lee movies and all those imitators, was Kung Fu. So one of the characters they created was called Master of Kung Fu, Shang-Chi, a Marvel character who is still around, had his own title for a while. I don't know a lot about it. Pretty sure it was started and created by writer Doug Moench, yes, who I've also mentioned before because he is the creator and main writer for the very first Moon Knight series, so we'll be talking about him. But anyway, another one that came out also was Iron Fist. I think the name actually came from something like a movie title, something like Ceremony of the Iron Fist or something, and it stuck. And he was created by Roy Thomas and Gil Kane, and first showed up in Marvel Premiere number 15 in 1974. So anyway, he was just another sort of kung fu master, that was his deal. And he popped up in a few other places before getting his own title, which I think only ran for about 15 issues. But of note in it was, in issue 14, is the first ever Marvel Comics appearance of the character, well-known character, villain, Sabretooth, who would, go on to be very popular, have all sorts of things, and they'd tie him into the X-Men. He'd have all these ties with Wolverine because of the similarities. But at the time, he wasn't supposed to have anything to do with any of that. He was just supposed to be an enemy for Iron Fist to fight. And, so if you want to find that comic, good luck. It's not impossible. It'd be a cool thing to pick up. Again, I think you'd probably have to part with a little bit of money to get it, but I think it would be a cool thing to have. Alright, moving on. So, after that, he, I'm not exactly sure how it started, but he started a partnership with another sort of exploitation character at the time, well-known character nowadays, Luke Cage, Power Man, who you may or may not know was one of the first major black superheroes in the Marvel Universe. I'm almost entirely certain he was the first to have his own ongoing title, Luke Cage, Power Man, however you want to say it. And I'm not exactly sure if Iron Fist started showing up in issues of Power Man. I think so. I think sometimes they had like a title called Iron Fist and Power Man, or Power Man and Iron Fist. And eventually they also did a thing called Heroes for Hire, which was a little different spin on the whole hero thing in the Marvel Universe, because, they were actually working, they'd take jobs and do things, but, they almost never were actually taking money. They worked pro bono a lot. Because as it turns out, Danny Rand, again, that's Iron Fist, his actual civilian identity is that he's a billionaire. And there's stuff about that. Iron Fist has actually a really wonderfully great origin story, and I won't get into it, but I'm just going to say, so many origin stories I don't really care about, and one of the things about all these movies that come out that sort of pisses me off, they focus on the origin story first, and I don't care, I just want to get on with it. I think Batman Begins is like the one exception, but if they ever, let me, because I got to do it, write an Iron Fist movie, it can be done really well, not just because of my amazing talent, but also because it's a great origin story to work with. Anyway, moving on. So then he, he popped up here and there throughout Marvel Universe, didn't have his own title. He was here, he showed up at Maximum Carnage at one point, just sort of as a throw-in. And then after the whole Onslaught storyline, there was sort of a void left for a little while, for the whole Heroes Reborn thing. If you don't know these things, I'll talk about them one day, I'm sure. And anyway, so there were a lot of less heroes, so they relaunched Heroes for Hire, thinking they could fill that in. Again, that sort of petered out. And anyway, all the way up to the Marvel Civil War, one of the things that was going on is a Daredevil storyline was he wasn't involved in the Civil War because Daredevil was actually Matt Murdock, and he was in jail. And there's this whole great arc, done mostly, I think, by Ed Brubaker, of Matt Murdock, Daredevil, in jail and trying to get out and blah blah blah. And in the meantime, because he has a friendship with Danny Rand, Iron Fist, they'd cross paths, to help him out, and actually there turns out to be more behind it. But anyway, he thinks he's helping him out. Danny Rand is going around pretending to be Daredevil so that people, because the whole thing about Matt Murdock being in prison is that people thought, they outed him, and then Matt Murdock was Daredevil, but then you had... So anyway, so you come to the end of the Civil War, and Danny Rand, Iron Fist, is impersonating Daredevil, running around doing his thing. So anyway, the series was launched around 2006, early 2006, and like I said, I didn't get the first few issues of it. What I wound up doing was getting the first arc, the last Iron Fist story in trade paperback, and I was blown away right from the beginning. It's so great. Great, great criticism there, great review. But I mean, one word I'll probably use a lot when I talk about the series is pulp, because it has a very pulp feel to it. The serial type characters, the 2030s, those sort of stories, and I love that. And actually, Ed Brubaker is one of the writers that got it off the ground, but he's actually paired with lesser known at the time, he's probably making a name for himself now, writer Matt Fraction. So they did the first start of that. The art is wonderful. David Aja, pretty sure it's David. AJA, I figure it's Aja. He just does gorgeous stuff. Right now he is working on the Stephen King's Dark Tower, Marvel's adaptation of that, which is beautiful, and I'm collecting that also, and I'll talk about that sometime. Anyway, so it kind of brings us into the story. One of the things I said, like, he has a great origin story, but they never talk about it very much until we get into here. Another thing that's really good about this series is that it basically assumes, like, and it worked for me, like, you don't know anything really about Iron Fist, and it picks you up and lets you in on it, and it guides you along, and it's great. And because, as I said, they never explored his origin too much, so this really explores his origins. He finds out stuff he didn't know, like the fact that, something I'd sort of guessed, was that, Iron Fist was actually a title that had been handed down over the centuries to different people, and he finds out there have been 66 people before him, all of them pretty much in China, except for him and the latest one, who with a very similar name, Orson Randall, another American, who he meets in this, and he was the Iron Fist in the early 20th century. He fought in World War I and other stuff. One of the things you find out is that they age a lot slower. And anyway, this is all new stuff to Danny, and he's paired with Orson, and it's really cool pairing. Orson, like I said, he has a very similar costume to Danny's, but again, even more pulpish because he's based on heroes from that era, like the Spider and stuff. Cool thing is that he uses guns. He's got a couple pistols, which he amplifies their power by using his Iron Fist power. One thing is, Iron Fist doesn't really have any superhuman powers outside the fact that he has the ability to focus his chi, in which he normally would do. He'd focus his chi until it would power up his fist. It would become like a thing onto iron, is what it is. And, he'd have a really powerful glowing fist, and he'd have super strength with it, smash through a wall, that sort of thing, impervious to pain. Then you find out there's other stuff he can do with his powers. He learns it from Orson, and also from a book that Orson shows him, all about the history of the Iron Fist. And so yeah, one of the things Orson does is that he can power his chi through the guns so that the bullets are even more devastating when they fire off. They're a great pairing. For those who don't know, Danny Rand's sort of a lean guy. He's like 5'9", 5'10", lean, wiry guy. Orson's like 6'2", 200-some pounds, big guy. And Danny Rand, he's not like an outright joker like Spider-Man, but he's still one of those characters, he makes quips, he's self-deprecating, that sort of thing. Orson's more gruff. They're a really good pairing to have going along. Anyway, I gotta pick up speed here on the series. So anyway, then later on as the series goes, it has a good story and stuff, you get a little break off from the story. They're not one-shots, because this is number 17, as you can see, but this is actually one of the several standalone stories where they go back in history and tell you about one of the previous Iron Fists and tell you stuff about that. Here is a standalone story, which is a reprinting of the first 2 issues, The Origin of Danny Rand, so that fills you in on that. Here's the standalone story, Orson Randall and the Death Queen of California. I was so happy to see that. There's a good shot of Orson. Because then you get a story about him back in the day. It was around 1930. He goes, it has nothing to do with any of the continuity. He's just going down as Iron Fist. He goes to Hollywood, and some really cool stuff happens. So anyway, yeah, what else? That's going to have to do for now. But anyway, like I said, it's a great series. Check it out. I mean, if you really like pulp stuff, adventure stuff, they really have a great thing going with it. Danny Rand for a while actually showed up in New Avengers, which I'll talk about. I don't want to go over 10 minutes, so thanks a lot. Peace. See you next time. Bye-bye.